Hi everyone. This is what happened to me when I got government housing part 68. So on the 21st of the 7th, 2017, I attended the Melbourne Magistrates Court to hand in evidence for the contested hearing for the personal safety order that I had applied for against the respondent. I didn't know it at that time, but I was supposed to request in court that the respondent's lawyer do the same. But because I didn't ask for the respondent's evidence against me, I never saw the supposed evidence that they would rely on in court to fight against my application. And I don't know why the judge didn't tell me that I was supposed to make that request, given that they knew I was representing myself and that I was not a trained lawyer. I had to do a lot of work preparing the evidence with all the scanning and printing of documents, and I also had to put all the photographic evidence on a CDR for the court because they didn't accept USB sticks, and that was very expensive. But I thought that it was all worth it because I believed that the order would keep me safe and that I would end up being compensated for my costs anyway. Excuse me. But I still resented doing all of that work and all the time that it took for me to go into court. And obviously, I hated using my pension money to pay for the costs of representing myself. And I hated my life for the first time since I had my daughter. And I hated the fact that all of this was imposed on me and had nothing to do with me. And this wasn't what I wanted for my life. The people who worked in the justice system excuse me, seemed to be in agreement that I was making all of this up, even though they had never offered to put cameras around the block to disprove what I was saying. And they didn't have evidence that I was lying. And it seemed to me that they were naive and gullible and some of the most easily led people that I had ever come across. Then on the 23rd of the 7th, 2017, I noticed that my medical condition, which is the one that I can't talk about because it is too personal, had been continuing for 23 days consecutively, and I was very worried about my health. By the 24th of the 7th, 2017, I was starting to see my home as surreal, and I no longer recognized it as my home when I was there, and I felt like I was a guest in the block that I lived in. People had left the block because they had died or had been forced out by various methods, and I felt like I was being forced out too. Physically, but I think like mentally I felt like I had been already removed from the block. It was now 2017, and the respondent had first assaulted me in 2015, and I had made reports to the police and to the Office of Housing and a whole heap of other people from back then, and even from the start, they were suggesting that I should apply for a transfer, but I just couldn't do that. All I wanted was to settle into my home and care for my daughter and set up my home, and I never intended to still be living in poverty and still not working after all this time. Now, this is one of the few letters that I received in response to my complaints about the respondent, because as I said, most of the public servants that I dealt with refused to put things in writing and would only call me. But in this letter, you can see the date is the 12th of the 11th, 2015. So all the way back then, the remedy to the situation was suggesting that I get a transfer. I know that some government housing blocks have cameras in the common areas, and I would say that I would give consent to cameras in the common areas of this block. But you would have to ask yourself what would happen if people refused to hand over the footage of incidents. And given everything that happened to me and the way I was treated, I would have to say that I don't believe that footage of incidents would be made available to me.